Today's video is truly special, not only because the subject is different from the others, but also because of the exciting updates I'm bringing to you. Without further ado, let's dive straight into the content of this video. Let's imagine an incredibly skilled writer, proficient at crafting captivating texts on various subjects. With great effort and seemingly endless creativity, she managed to publish many texts that captivated her readers. But one ordinary day, she found herself in a difficult situation, unable to find inspiration for her next piece. She thought of various things, but none of the ideas seemed to excite her. She scoured her bookshelf and searched the internet, but nothing yielded results. Panic started to set in as she feared her ideas had run dry or she was facing creative block. However, after taking a deep breath, she decided to set it aside for a while and focus on other activities. Surprisingly, as she strolled through a tranquil forest, not thinking about writing or forcing any ideas, inspiration suddenly struck. It was then that she realized that when she stopped trying so hard, ideas flowed naturally. The writer lived an interesting paradox. She wanted to be productive, but the more she tried, the less she could. It was only when she stopped worrying and released the pressure to be productive that she could write again. So, this story shows us that searching and striving don't always lead us to what we desire. Sometimes, these efforts can even hinder us. What's happening here? Author Aldous Huxley was the first to talk about the law of reverse effect, saying that the more we consciously try something, the less successful we are. Could it be that by ceasing to strive so hard for success, we increase our chances of achieving it? Results often come when we stop worrying. In this video, we'll explore the law of reverse effect, also known as the law of reversed effort. Don't miss the opportunity to understand how controlling your emotions can make all the difference. And long ago, in ancient China, a merchant had the fortune of meeting a sage who was said to be one of the wisest people of his time. The merchant tried to impress the sage by telling him how much he had earned in his latest business deal. The sage agreed but didn't seem very impressed. Instead, he invited the merchant to visit him and see his grand house and all the wealth he had accumulated over the years. However, the sage remained impassive, not easily impressed. Instead, he questioned the merchant about why he so desperately wanted to impress him with his possessions. Faced with the merchant's bewilderment, the sage recalled the words of Lao Tzu, saying, "Those who try to shine brighter than others diminish their own light. Those who consider themselves righteous cannot perceive how wrong they are. Those who boast of their achievements diminish their value." We learn from an early age that success requires effort, but in some areas of life, excessive effort can be counterproductive. The merchant sought the sage's approval, but the more he tried, the less he could impress him. The sage reminded us that the more we force our achievements onto others, the less we highlight our own light. Why do we constantly need to prove our worth? Are we trying to compensate for something? It seems like we are determined to convince the world of our importance. Paradoxically, the more we crave external validation, the less people tend to recognize our value. It's evident. If the merchant hadn't been so anxious to impress, he could have allowed his achievements to speak for themselves at the right time. This would have impressed the sage not only because of the achievements themselves but also because of the merchant's humility and self-assuredness, who didn't feel the need to brag or seek constant attention. Thus, the law of reverse effect showed its influence again, sabotaging desired outcomes when we worry too much about others' opinions. When it comes to our mental health, the law of reverse effect also seems to be in action. Often, we try to control our mental states, but this often backfires. Professor David Clark, in his blog, shares how excessive effort can hinder our ability to cope with emotional suffering. He asks if you've ever found yourself getting nervous in high-pressure situations, like competitions, exams, or job interviews. He argues that we often spend considerable time preparing for these moments, telling ourselves that we need to give our best and facing intense pressure. All our attention and energy are focused on seeking exceptional performance, with great effort and determination. You move forward, but then disaster strikes. You mess up, make a mistake, and go through one of the most embarrassing moments of your life. As David Clark argues, the paradox of mental control also applies when facing emotional suffering. Trying too hard to push certain thoughts away often results in the opposite, amplifying our negative feelings. When we fall into the trap of the mental control paradox, we realize that the more we try to master our thoughts, the harder it becomes. This dynamic aligns with the law of reverse effect. Clark mentions scientific research indicating that humans are not particularly skilled at thought suppression compared to generating new thoughts. However, the law of reverse effect also seems to operate in the opposite direction. Returning to the story that introduced this video, the flow of creativity and mental control often do not harmonize. While we may be proficient at generating thoughts, forcing the creation of creative solutions, ideas, or inspiration for our creative endeavors often results in frustration. The harder we try, the more we strive, the more discouraged we feel. Versatile artist and teacher J. Cameron, in her book The Artist's Way, highlights that we often try to shape, outline, and control our ideas instead of allowing them to grow organically. The creative process is more about allowing than controlling. Mystery and surprise are at the heart of creativity. Often, we experience our creativity flourishing when we're not actively seeking it, whether during a relaxing moment in the shower, a walk in the forest, or before sleep. In these moments when we stop caring, the ideas we sought emerge spontaneously. Ancient Taoists observed that when we are excessively concerned with the outcome, we are likely to compromise our own performance. The story of the Taoist archer, who shot perfectly during practice but failed in competitions with a prize at stake, illustrates how caring too much about the outcome can be detrimental. When we worry too much about the outcome, regardless of the task at hand, we become tense, even if we are normally competent. Our minds are fixated on the future and sometimes dwell on past mistakes. In these moments, we are absent, even though we may believe that more worry means more control and, therefore, more chances of success. However, in reality, the opposite happens. The more we worry, the more we try to control, the more likely our performances will suffer. This is where the law of reverse effect manifests again. The more we strive for success, the more it seems to elude us. When we become overly concerned about the results, we tend to pressure ourselves in ways that ultimately hinder our progress. Ancient Taoists understood how people could get in their own way by trying too hard to achieve something. Instead of excessive effort, they embraced the concept of Wu Wei or effortless action. Athlete Christopher Bergland, in an article published in Psychology Today, explores how the ideal state of performance, also known as the zone, often emerges when we're not striving to achieve it. He argues that, despite seeming paradoxical, adopting a mindset of non-effort, also known as Wu Wei, increases an athlete's chances of entering the zone, performing tasks with fluidity, and achieving success. The underlying contradiction of Wu Wei lies in the fact that trying less, rather than striving excessively to win at all costs, often leads to more positive results. When we enter the mental state of effortless action, that is, when we are in the zone, we realize that this state of being, or rather, of doing, is characterized by the absence of persistent thoughts about the past. While desired results are still in our minds, they are not the central focus. The desired outcomes may be in the background, but our attention is fully engaged in the task at hand. The task itself ceases to feel like a task. It's as if the pianist merges with the music, the writer becomes part of the novel, and the football player becomes the game itself. When there is no constant concern about future achievements or remorse for past failures, our performance is less disturbed by these thoughts. This seems to enhance performance. We could argue that, by letting go of worry, results naturally come, and the mental and physical barriers we create for ourselves, as a result of excessive concern for outcomes, disappear. They no longer hinder our pure and responsive action in the present, an action that easily adapts to current circumstances. For example, to drive a car, we need to be attuned to our surroundings. Everything happening in the environment is unique and specific to that particular moment. While there are patterns and generalizations, when we scrutinize what's happening on a specific road, the cars, the people inside them, their actions and thoughts, and their reactions, we are dealing with a unique and unprecedented symphony that cannot be rationally predicted. We must rely on our driving skills and the ability to respond appropriately to everything that unfolds. However, our minds have this tendency to want to control the future, creating detailed scenarios and rehearsing our reactions to them repeatedly. But when we finally get there, we realize that these meticulous plans have proven ineffective most of the time. Moreover, all this mental activity of constant planning prevents us from responding adequately to what is actually happening. However, by breaking down this barrier of thoughts, we create space to allow the environment to influence our response. This empowers us to react to what is happening in reality, rather than reacting to our own expectations. Philosopher Dr. Wei Hsin Yuan emphasizes the importance of openness in the context of Wu Wei. He argues that this approach applies to various aspects, from politics and governance to diplomacy and any other activity. What he calls Wu Wei is essentially acting receptively and responsively, coming from inner clarity and harmonizing with the flow of the universe. Whether considering the paradox of mental control or the Taoist concept of Wu Wei, these ideas highlight how our thoughts can become obstacles in our path. The more we worry about something, the more inclined we are to worry excessively and ruminate, which hinders our ability to act in ways that can lead to success. This aligns with the law of reverse effect. By releasing our fixation on the outcome, we increase the likelihood of achieving the desired result. Results do not arise solely from intense desire or fixation on them. They manifest through actions. Paradoxically, the more we fixate on desired outcomes, the less likely we are to act in ways that genuinely contribute to achieving them. Worrying too much about results is akin to the archer in the story of Jiang who trembled, the football player who missed a penalty, or the writer facing creative block. That's all for today. If you want to learn more about Stoicism, click on the pinned comment link. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And for your attention, my heartfelt thanks.